as we are also live via our social media platform, which is Power FM Zambia. We are joined in the studio by Ms. Mbewe Anamela, the Executive Director of the Non-Governmental Gender Organizations Coordinating Council, NGOCC, Zambia's leading network of women's rights organizations. NGOCC has been at the center of national debates on gender-based violence, violence against women and children, gender-responsive budgeting, and women's political participation. The organization has consistently raised concern over rising cases of rape and defilement, calling for stronger laws, better investigations, as well as increased funding for survivor support services. NGOCC has also challenged government on policy choices it says continue to overlook women's needs, from national budgets to electoral processes.
Now, more recently, NGOCC took a firm stance on position on the passage of the Constitution Bill, Amendment Bill number 7, and citing concerns about transparency, consultation, and the impact on democratic participation and women's representation. Today on Voice of the People, we get to unpack these issues with Madam Mbewe Anamela and ask what real progress is exactly when it comes to gender equality in Zambia and what it should look like. If you would like to be part of this conversation, do remember you can call us up on 0955 997 997 or on 0979 192 485 or 0961 690 487. Welcome to the show, Madam Anamela.
Thank you very much, and I'm really pleased to be here.
Indeed.
And it's wonderful. Now, for all of those who've heard of NGOCC, and I think especially within the news, how would you describe NGOCC's core mission today, especially in the light of rising violence against women and children?
NGOCC's core mission is the empowerment of women. And the empowerment of women comes in different forms. It's around ensuring that the woman is protected. It's around ensuring that the woman can speak up for herself. It's also ensuring that the woman can take care of all her needs. And it's ensuring that the woman has a seat where it matters, where decisions are made that affect her. So I think that is the core mandate of NGOCC. When we talk about gender equity and equality, when we talk about gender justice, it is ensuring that the country, the world, looks at and understands the different needs, the different perspectives, as well as the different voices that are out there, and ensures that all segments of community and society are treated equally and are able to voice out their needs and ensure that these are not only voiced out, but form part of the core of the democratic principles and the democratic dispensation of the country, whether it's through culture, whether it's through the economic sphere, whether it's through politics, and whether it's through all our social aspects of the society.
Now, what do you say to those who say that when it comes to organizations such as your own, it feels like you push the girl child so much that men are left behind, boys are left behind?
Well, our mandate is about women and girls, and I think we're not apologetic about that. We're very, very clear. And this is why. If you even look at issues of leadership right now, let me start from the top before I come down to the very, very nitty-gritties.
Yes.
If you look at the issues of leadership at the moment, let's start with cabinet. We have 25 seats, right, in cabinet, and only 4 women. So are we there really? We form, as women, more than 50% of the population. So if we only have 4 women in cabinet out of 25, is there gender equity and equality in this country? Let's look at, for example, issues of gender-based violence. Over 70% of the victims of gender-based violence or the survivors are women. What does that say about our community? So when we talk about focusing on women and girls, it's because we see that there are still disparities. If we come to the economic sectors, for example, most of the women actually are employed in the agriculture sector. But this is in small-scale agriculture, while the big commercial farmers are largely men. So whether we look at agriculture, we look at the economic sectors, we look at the different areas of our socio-economic and political life, women still need a push because the playing field is not completely level. And the opportunities for women while on paper they might look like they might look like it's equal, when it comes to the realities, women still lag behind. Yes, indeed, now we're seeing that the girl child is doing very well academically in school, but that took work. Remember, there were not too long ago, maybe 10, even 15 years ago, when a family had to make a choice between who to take to school, between a boy and a girl. I don't know if it was culturally or it was just the norms and beliefs at family level. They would make a choice for the boy and say that the girl is already catered for because she would get married and have somebody to look after her. Not too long ago, before NGOCC and other organizations had advocated for a re-entry policy, when a girl child fell pregnant and maybe the father of the child was a boy, the girl child could no longer go back to school. That was the end of education. There was no school that would take them back. But who was the father? The boy, and the boy continued. Now we have a re-entry policy. So we are gradually looking at the different impediments to the well-being of a woman or a girl and slowly tackling those until we reach, a society where social, economic, political, cultural participation is equal. And this is why we exist and continue to exist. We're not there. We're not yet there.
Okay. Now, gender-based violence is a very, very sensitive topic and a very interesting conversation that must be had. Reports suggest a continued increase in cases of violence against women and children, girl child to be specific. What does this tell us about how the system is responding to the issues that we are currently facing?
What this tells us is that I think we are more reactive than proactive. And what we need to be focusing on now is prevention. I know that we have scored some successes in responses to gender-based violence. And one of the things, of course, which we want to focus on now is survivor-centered approaches that will look at the well-being of the survivor, well-being in different ways. That is the mental, the psychological, and also the economic well-being of that survivor. But we need to be more focused on prevention. And prevention is not easy. And why it's not easy is that these are issues that are really personal. A person decides, it's a human being that decides to be violent or is violent. So it means that these matters must be tackled at a personal level, and that is in the household, in the school, probably the churches. And mindset shifts and issues of norms, cultural practices are some of the hardest things to tackle. But I think what we need is to look at the preventive side of gender-based violence, and that is how we sensitize both boys and girls from the time that they are young, and how we continue even through the different stages of their lives to ensure that this matter is addressed, it is discussed, and there's mindset changes, that potential perpetrators know that this is not something that is correct to do. They must know first, why is this wrong? Why shouldn't this be done? And then if it does happen, what are the repercussions? And those must be stiff as a deterrent. But I think before we get to punitive deterrents, we should first start with a mind shift change.
I remember when we did have an influx of these cases popping up on our social media feed, hashtag no bail, no bond. So it was a clarion call for the government to make sure that whoever is a child defiler does not get bail. Do you agree with these sentiments?
Of course, and we have been advocating along those lines. And I don't know if you recall, last year, we did a protest march. We coordinated a protest march in Lusaka and also different parts of the country. And we presented a petition to the vice president. And what we said in that petition was, one, we wanted stiffer penalties, especially for child defilers. And we went further than what you have actually outlined there. We said this, besides no bond and no bail, we actually called for surgical castration. But then the only rider that we put there is that when we come to matters like surgical castration or stiffer penalties, we need to make sure that the investigation elements are very, very rigid, and that they're very, they will produce results that are really valid. Because can you imagine somebody being incarcerated and, for example, if we had castration happening and in the end they were actually innocent? So forensic, what do they call it? Forensic investigations must be available across the country, and investigation must be very, very thorough to come to convictions. But in that thoroughness, I think we should also not use that as an excuse for letting people go scot-free who actually are not innocent. So this is exactly what we've been advocating for, and we are very glad to see that the Director of Public Prosecutions has actually indicated that some of these are going to be non-bailable. And also what they have also done is that in the past, especially when it was violence against women in the household, or when it was defilement, in the family, people would go and withdraw cases. That is no longer going to be the case, and that is very, very important. You can't just withdraw a case because the family has sat down and indicated that this might break the family, because that's what normally happens. Remember the issue, though it's in court, of the 3 ladies that wanted their husband withdrawn.
Yes.
That should not be allowed, because a crime is a crime, and it should be treated as such, and we should see it to the end of in terms of the justice system, to the end of its to the conclusion of the matter. Justice must be seen to have been made.
I love that you've touched on some of the changes that are being considered. Now, from the moment that NGOCC began pushing, especially looking at the rise within WAVE, and that's violence against women and children, what are some of the changes or rather the improvements, especially when it comes to culture and mindset, that you've seen and you commend and hopefully can get better over time?
I think some of the improvements that we've seen, let me first start with traditional leaders. We have engaged traditional leaders, and there's some traditional leaders that actually have, through some of our support, developed bylaws at community level there, within their chiefdoms, where they have zero tolerance for violence against women, and where they actually have do intervene for example, if there's an early child marriage.
Yes.
Some traditional leaders will actually be in the forefront of encouraging the community to go and withdraw that child and put her back in school. And even where there's violence, any other form of violence, they will ensure that these perpetrators are reported. So I can start this. Then secondly, I think we've seen that our engagement at community level is also bearing fruit, because it is not by accident that we're seeing a high level of reporting of these cases. It's because communities have been sensitized. People know that violence against women is not acceptable, and hence they report. And we've also seen even, as I say, the change of mindsets around the education of a girl child. Because, even denying a child what is rightfully theirs is some form of violence as well. Because remember, there's even economic violence, yes, where at household level you deny, because you're the breadwinner, you deny the rest of the family the economic sustenance. So we're seeing these mindsets, and we're seeing communities going out there being at the forefront as individuals in retrieving girls from child marriages, reporting violence against women, sensitizing fellow community members. So we're really seeing a change of mindset even at local level. We have people who just tell us, oh, this is what we've observed in that household, and we've gone to report, and we'll get back to you, with progress. And that's very, very good. We have people coming even through our office. By the way, NGOCC, as you know, is a network organization. So we have 118 member organizations who are community-based organizations, large NGOs, faith-based organizations across the country. So this is why it's possible for us to be in the communities, because of our member organizations. And they're on the lookout for these cases, and they're really working. Another big change we have is also the mindset of the police. This has taken training over a number of years. And I'm not sure yet, but we would hope that this would be part of the curriculum of police training. But there's been specific trainings that have been carried out, supported by various donor agencies and implemented by organizations such as ours, sensitizing the police on how to manage these cases. Then we have the one-stop centers, and holistic care for survivors. So I think there's been a lot that has been achieved, and mindsets are changing now.
Okay. And where would you say are the biggest gaps when it comes to funding and also services for survivors? Because I think a number of them are quite forgotten. It's always you've reported, maybe it goes to the police, it goes to court, but what happens with them afterwards? We never really hear much about their rehabilitation.
Okay, so I think a survivor-centered approach is very, very important. And that speaks to exactly what you're talking about, the well-being of that survivor. Sometimes it talks about the reintegration of that survivor. But first and foremost, the basic is the safety of that survivor and removing them from where they are in danger. So one of the challenges that we have at the moment is that we do not have sufficient safe houses in Zambia. We have safe houses that are managed by civil society organizations, such as the YWCA, which is a member of NGOCC. That is their specialization. We have some safe houses that are managed by the Ministry of Community Development. However, these are not sufficient. We have the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act, the Anti-GBV Act, and that actually calls on government to build or to ensure that there are safe houses across all the provinces and actually the districts. So what we require are safe houses, and this is why safe houses are important. If, for example, a woman is let's talk about a child. If a child is a victim of defilement in a home, that child needs to be removed from that place that poses a danger to their safety. But then to remove them, you must have somewhere to take them. If a woman, for instance, is being battered in the home, she must be taken out of that environment into a safe place. So that is the role that safe houses play. Now, those safe houses have to be resourced. And one of the elements as well in the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act is that government needs to set up what we call an anti-GBV fund. And that fund is what takes care of those safe houses. It takes care of what happens in there. And what happens in there is that the people in there, the survivors must be fed. Also, for example, they must be given economic survival skills, because a lot of women do not leave these abusive spaces because they have nowhere to go and they do not have any means for economic sustenance. So what we do, for example, even in the YWCA safe houses, is to not only take care of the psychosocial needs, but also to take care of the economic needs by empowering them. But that needs money. So we would like this Gender-Based Violence Act to be fully implemented by government building these safe houses, more safe houses that are accessible. Within different communities, they must be accessible. By the way, usually the location of these is kept a secret because we don't want people coming and say, I want my wife and I'll beat you, all of you up, release my wife. So they're usually secret for that reason. And we don't want a defiler coming and trying to get that child. And also what happens in those safe houses, for example, with the professional help of the YWCA, is that if there's a defilement case or any case involving a child, they prepare them even for the court appearance. It is not easy for a child to go through that process. So psychologically and also technically, they'll prepare these children, of course, with the help of legal minds. So there's a lot that happens, but it needs, if you just listen to what I've said, it needs a lot of resourcing. And it needs coordinated efforts. There's the justice system, there's the medical side of it, there's the law enforcement. So collaboration is very important, and skill sets across these different components of enforcement are very, very important.
So then I would say then to some extent, to play devil's advocate, we've also seen that there are a number of cases that have popped up, especially for those who keep a track on social media, of men being subject to gender-based violence. But what assistance do they get?
We encourage men to report too. We don't have safe houses that are specifically for men, but we encourage men to report too. And one of the members of NGOCC is actually, I don't know if they've heard of the National Men's Network?
Yes.
They're a member of NGOCC, and they work with men and boys around sensitizing them against the ills of gender-based violence, and also bringing up responsible men that are also become champions in their communities against gender-based violence. We encourage men to report as well. You can report, even if you're a man, you can report to police and report to the victim support unit when you know that you've been a subject, or whether you know that you're experiencing gender-based violence. This is very important, and we do not condone female perpetrators in the same way that we do not condone male perpetrators. So we encourage men to report as well. Gender-based violence is wrong. Whether it's on a man or a woman, it's wrong. Violence in itself is wrong. There are other ways of sorting out matters. By discussions. If you cannot discuss, find a mediator. Find people you respect who can help you. But violence is wrong. Look at what happens. People get maimed for life. People lose their eyes. People have broken limbs. And also, it's violence against women. One other thing, or against anybody, one other thing we must not ignore is that it's a cost to the nation. It's a cost to the economy. First and foremost, if you've been beaten up, you're battered, and you're in hospital, and you're a productive worker, what happens to your contribution to that production? You are in hospital for that period, and you are not contributing productively. Secondly, you are using the resources in the health system to get better. You are using the resources in the legal system when you take up that case. So it's a cost to the economy. And when we understand this, especially if the government looks at it this way, they should be ready then to ensure that they resource prevention against GBV. And we as civil society organizations must also look at it this way. And citizens that are responsible must look at it that way. Violence against anybody is a cost to the nation, an economic cost. It's a social cost. It's a cultural cost. It's a cost in various ways. And imagine a home where there's violence. What does that do to the children? They have psychological issues. And usually, people that are perpetrators come from, backgrounds where they witness this in their homes. So it's a very, it's a cost to the education system. Imagine a child that is going to school that has been violated and they cannot concentrate in school. That is a cost to that child's life. That child could have been, thank you so much, that child could have done so much better in life hadn't they been, a victim. So let's look at it that way, and if we can understand it that way, I hope that individuals, the government, and everybody would, be more focused on preventing violence against anybody.
Okay. Well, you can be part of the conversation. The phone lines are open. The numbers are 0961 690 487 or 0955 997 997 or 0979 192 485. We are joined in the studio by NGOCC Executive Director, Miss Mbewe Anamela. Hello, it's you to the Power Breakfast Show.
Hello, morning.
Hello, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good. You are speaking with Chilando.
Okay, Mr. Chilando, go ahead with your comment or question.
Mrs. Mbewe, morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chilando.
I'm good. I think my contribution would be that, understandably so, the central purpose of NGOCC's advocacy, gender justice organization, and following from that, you agree with me that society within itself is not the same. It has got different layers amongst the people, we people that live in society. Even amongst women, we have women who are highly educated, less educated, and those who are not educated at all. So from that front is where my contribution comes in to say you have to try as much as possible to offer strong support even to women with disabilities. Those are demographics, madam, you agree with me, who are highly disadvantaged and marginalized in almost every field of human endeavor. So if we can put some sufficient safeguards to ensure that these people are empowered, it would be better, and I employ organization which is at the center of promoting equality amongst women, such that you might even include these women in your organization. I've spoken with this passion because with me, I'm somebody who is living with disability and visually impaired. In conservative English, I'm blind, so no wonder I've been seeing these things amongst our women folk, those with disabilities. You find that somebody is being abused, that he has nowhere to go because he's maybe blind, he's deaf, we can't communicate well with law enforcement. So it's here where you have to come in very strong to stand with such women and make sure that their lives are better in every sense possible. Otherwise, you are explaining so well, and we are together. Thank you very much, presenters.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chilando, for coming through. Okay, what's your reaction to that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chilando. And you know, what you have raised is very, very critical. There are differentiated segments of women, as you say. There are women in the rural, women in the urban, there are the educated, there are women with disabilities. So as NGOCC, we try our best to be as inclusive as possible. The Zambia National Association for Women with Disabilities, NADO, is actually a member of NGOCC. And if you look even at some of our advocacy messaging, we actually advocate for young women, women with disability, and different types of women. And when we try and analyze our work, we try and look at the differentiated impacts of everything on women. And thank you so much that you've raised this. For example, even in some of our messaging where we have printed material, we have started even to try and print some in Braille. And very soon, we're going to be handing over some Braille materials to our members, NADO. Okay. So
before you continue on your question, we do have a caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very, very well.
All right. All right, Mutale, go ahead with your comment or question.
First of all, I would like to greet the guests on the program since inception, even if I'm driving. And she's been very articulate in bringing out the issues. And somebody who's legal, because I am a law lecturer and my field is human rights, but I've been following her quite well. I disagree with the advocacy on gender-based violence cases being non-available. As a human rights law lecturer, the presumption of innocence is constitutional. A person remains innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. So no one should be incarcerated until that happens. So for me, even murder, it's wrong to be non-available because it defeats the whole purpose of presumption of innocence. So a person cannot be incarcerated until their tried evidence is led, they are convicted by a court of competent jurisdiction. In as much as I agree that cases of defilement are high and other forms of violence, to keep incarcerated an accused person is unconstitutional, a gross violation of human rights, and should not happen in modern society. So whether it's defilement, murder, drug trafficking, or the like, there should be no non-available offense. As proponents of human rights, we disagree, and we've been having these conversations that even murder itself, it should be bailable. That is my comment this morning. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for coming to. Yes, now you can answer the
thank
question.
you very much. I think I did answer Mr. Chilando.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Mtale, thank you very much. And yes, indeed, from a human rights perspective, I understand what you're saying. However, even human rights, I think as human rights lawyers say, your rights end where the rights of the other person starts. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when we talk about defilement, numerous studies globally have showed that defilers, men that are naturally, or women that are naturally attracted to children, seem to be repeat offenders as long as they're free out there. So if indeed then, and I do agree with you, yes, there's the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. But where this has happened and where these have a propensity to continue to perpetrate as long as they are free, how else would you then yourself as a human rights lawyer propose that the society be protected? I think I would throw that question back to you. Because for us, the solution we see is removing that person from a space where they can continue to perpetrate that crime. So as human rights lawyers, then give us solutions on how else we can protect the community.
Okay. One of the most interesting conversation as we dive into another conversation is Act number 13, recently known as Bill 7. You have been one of the CSOs, Laz as well, that was against the procedure that was taken with Bill number 7 in itself. Now that we are looking that it has passed, where do you stand as NGOCC?
Firstly, law is law. And every citizen is bound to the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And this is why, in the first place, we spoke about the process, and we were quite very clear around wanting it to be very inclusive. Because after something goes into law, especially the Constitution, it is binding. Mm-hmm. And that is why the process is very important. Now that it is law, what we need to do as a civil society organization, and what we always do with law, is monitor its implementation. Its implementation must be fair, its implementation must be constitutional, mm-hmm. and its implementation must ensure the well-being of every citizen, because that is what a constitution should do. So ours is to monitor implementation, and where we need to participate around that implementation is to ensure that we're doing that in a manner that serves the well-being of the woman, the girl, and society in general.
Do you see any connections between the constitutional reform and protection for women's rights, especially in elections and civic engagement?
Well, in terms of civic engagement, the Constitution has a number of provisions mm-hmm. that actually ensure that civic engagement is a right, especially the right of freedom of expression, yes. freedom of association. But as with any law, the issue is in its implementation. Mm-hmm. So when you look at protecting women's rights, yes, there are clauses in there that protect us from a human rights perspective, and also from a gender perspective. However, as I said, it's still in the implementation. And when we look at women's participation in politics, yes, affirmative action is important, and why? And we have used the strategy of affirmative action in different ways, even including the education system. You know that we used to have a lower cutoff point for girls. Mm-hmm. So affirmative action is important, but it must be well thought through to ensure that it is free, it is fair, and when it comes to, for example, on representation, that representation must still be democratic in some way, because we're a democratic state. So for us, while we see improvements in terms of affirmative action, mm-hmm. but it is the implementation, and it is how well thought through that was. Mm-hmm. Is it going to yield the results that we want? And then we also learn lessons from other countries. There are countries where we've had affirmative action, where we've had proportional representation, or where we've had special seats for women. And what we have seen is that where there is no when I talk about constituencies, I'm not just talking about the constituencies as we have, but a grouping or a process where there is provision for choice. You know, people can choose and determine why this person is coming into that position. Mm-hmm. We have seen sometimes some discontent with others who said, but why that person and not this one? For example, if we look at the inclusion of persons with disability, mm-hmm. if, for example, we had which is the mother body now for persons with disability?
They would love to be called differently abled now.
No, that's what they used to be called before. Okay. Now it's persons with disability. That is the politically correct.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, they've shifted. So if, for example, we asked Zambia National Association for Persons with Disability, to vote as an association for who should go to parliament. That is a bit representative, isn't it? But where it's just appointment, sometimes, people may have misgivings. What parameters are you using in order to appoint this person? So we've had lessons, for instance, from Tanzania, where people that have gone in under proportional representation or reserved seats sometimes face discrimination even within the House. People say, but who are you representing? So we need to be careful around some of the negative implications of this, while it's good to have representation. And also we've had political parties not adopt women simply because they think women have a quota. This is not what this proportional representation means. It means that in the other seats that where people are nominated, women must still be nominated. It doesn't mean that political parties must stop nominating women. There should still be 50-50 nomination, because our constitution talks about 50-50 representation. So in nominations at political party level, there must be 50-50 representation, even while there are those seats, because it's about equal opportunities, even while we have affirmative action. Until we reach a point in this country where we see that there's complete gender justice, before that, affirmative action is necessary, but it must be implemented in a way that is meaningful. At the moment, when we look at the seats that are available to women, they're actually, if I remember correctly, it's about, in terms of this new system, it will be about 8%. Right now, we have 14% women in parliament, elected in parliament. So if we only have those, in terms of a proportion, have we changed anything? We've actually retrogressed. So besides those seats, we must have women adopted and women winning. And political parties have had the propensity sometimes of adopting women in those areas which are not their strongholds, setting up women to lose. That must stop. Political parties should adopt women where they know that they can win. That in itself is affirmative action, because you know that there's a bigger likelihood. We're not saying that the strongholds, only those who think it's the strongholds should win. But that is the pattern we've seen in this country, and I'm only being factual.
Okay.
So, yes.
Sorry to cut you off short. So we had Honorable Given Katuta, yes, who is aspiring for the presidential seat. So she did suggest that the best thing that would work, if, let's say, in a constituency, apart from those that are adopted by a party, maybe if they were put in the same category as women, it will be more fairer than them being pitted against men. It would be unfair. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. And why I agree is that women are already at a disadvantage when it comes to elections. One thing that is very clear is even negative sentiments are always thrown at women, and their personal sentiments. The playing field is not level out there. Women receive much more of a backlash when they try to stand than men do. So perhaps it would be good to have seats that are reserved for women alone, and let the women, that is also affirmative action in its own way. Let the women stand against themselves, and they let the best woman win. That's another way of doing it, yes. I would agree that that could work too.
Okay, once again, do remember that this is Voice of the People. You can be part of this conversation by calling us up on 0955-997-997 or on 0979-192-485 or on 0961-690-487. And still, I'd say, continuing with this particular conversation that we're on, we have seen how in certain countries, for example, we've seen within Rwanda, even Namibia, where it seems that there is, I would say, quite a good balance between men and women when it comes to being represented in parliament and even within the different arms of government. So what exactly can we do, starting from the ground level, that can ensure that women truly can compete even against men and still win?
I think the major thing is, as I said, the mindset shift. People should understand that women's participation is a right, and that women have something to bring to the table, just like men do. And communities must be ready to support women candidates wherever they are. And women themselves must have the confidence to come forward. But that confidence is also dependent on the environment. What environment is created out there for the participation of women? We have seen terrible sexist remarks against women. And we are told by women politicians, we as NGOCC engage with female politicians, how there is so much sextortion happening even in political parties where women are being asked for sexual favors in order for them to be adopted or in order for them. I mean, that should not happen. The playing field must be level. For as long as women are held to different standards to men, we will have women withdrawing, because women, as we know, have to work extra hard all the time, because for some reason we are asked to prove ourselves more than men. You know, sometimes when a position arises and we have people, you know, aspiring, even, for example, whether it's local government. By the way, local government elections are also critical. We're not only talking about parliamentary elections. Local government are very, very critical, because that's where the decisions that affect the communities directly on the ground happen. You will find they will hardly ever ask what the qualifications of that man are. But the first question, what qualifies? And we've heard sentiments recently of people saying, sentiments on media houses saying, next time can we vote for women who are married, women who have children? What has that got to do with the performance of a person, with the competence of a person? Do we ever apply those same principles to male candidates? So what we want is a fair playing field. Whether married, whether single, whether young, whether old, let's look at the competence of that person. Whether person with disability or not, let's look at the competence of that person. And let us ensure that campaigns, messages are issue-based. Because what deters women sometimes is the way things become so personal out there. They shouldn't be personal, and more personal for women. We've had people talk about women's lipstick. What has that got to do with it? It's the fact that, my dear Shekina, you are wearing very nice lipstick here. Does that affect your competence? No. Does the fact that you are married or single affect your competence? No. As a man, whether married or single, will it affect your competence? So why should we apply, you know, different standards for women? When we stop doing that, and this cyberbullying also must stop. Bullying in any form, violence against women in elections must stop. And that's where we'll see more women coming up.
Okay.
Yes.
So to cut you short, we do have a caller on the line. Hello, it's you to the Power Breakfast Show. All right. You can give us a call on 0979-192-485 or 0955-997-997 or 0961-690-487, and you can be part of the conversation. Hello, it's you to the Power Breakfast Show. Hello, good morning. It's you to Voice of the People. Hello. Okay, I think you can use the other number. That's 0955-997-997 or 0961-690-487 or 0979-192-485. And
maybe just speaking to that again, there are, I mean, the countries that you mentioned, Rwanda and Namibia, have had very, very clear affirmative action as well around, which is termed in law. And one other thing that is very important around this is the political will at every level, right from the top. If we have affirmative action and we agree, there must be drivers and champions around ensuring that that happens.
Okay. Hello, it's you to the Power Breakfast Show.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. It's you to the Power Breakfast Show.
Yes, Mwabuka Shani.
Twabuka fe bwino mwabuka shani na imwe.
Bueno.
Mkwaitiranda na banani?
Yes, that's your business.
Sorry, what's your name again?
Bashidevi Musonda Kuruingu.
Bashidevi.
A few days.
Okay, Bashidevi, go ahead with your contribution.
My contribution is nefuaika abana tashire kuba pushina bepamunandiwa financially bamawefu ndi financially yalishupa so mulefuaika nga kuba bati babe bamuna bena mu parliament and then na ku councillor national kuna kuba bati mu bafuire tete be minile because this time ma politics are financial Yes, we can have the potential of but financial. So just help for women, and then the Bakalabomba will not have what is, but Kuribamo, about what na wisdom, whether to a woman, number command work of financial equity. Children traffic.
Okay, maybe before you turn to that question, maybe we can accommodate another caller so that you answer the questions together. The numbers are 0979 192 or 0955 997 997 or 0961 690 487. You can also go through to our social media platform, that is Power FM Zambia on Facebook, and you can leave a comment there and we'll be able to read it out right here on the show. Or you can go ahead and respond to the sentiments by the callers.
Thank you. That was Davy.
Yes.
Should I respond in the vernacular?
Feel free.
Okay, I don't know how to speak Bemba, but I can speak Senga and Nyanja.
That's okay.
Go ahead
That's
with
okay.
those as well.
Okay. So I respond in vernacular?
Yes.
Okay, but Davy, zikomo maningi, sorry sinizi wa Chibemba, but nzakamba mchinyanja. Zikomo maningi kuvamene mwakamba. Nizoona tikambo kamba nazimaye bamene bali ma politics batuuza kuti chintu chikulu chamene bafutika nacho ni ndalama zochitira ma campaign even zama nomination. So pankani ifeta NGOCC manje na ma members batu tili pafupi no chita launch ka cabinet kamba tika donation button ko chita raise ndalama zabazimaye bamene bali mu ma politics. Tisebenza pamozi na bazimaye tikambirana nkhani mazimaye bali ma politics kuti ngachite bwanji raise ndalama even chabe yobatandizako chabe na maybe na ma campaign materials, even maybe ngatitizakwanisa even na nomination fees. So pakali pano tiona njira zamene tinga stage ku raising ama funds namba kudala ku sevens apo pali nkani. So mwakamba zoona azimayi bankala na ma problems ku raising ndalama za ma elections, and my election are very expensive. And kambili wazimayi mwamene mwakambila even mu ma business yawo siyafika pa level ya ma business yabazimuna banzatu amene bankala na ndalama maningi. So zikomo kwambili tamvera nti kulivamene tifuno chitapo pali yonga kana ndo amene bana my ideas bali bonse, please my ideas yali tili open kuti timvere kuti tingatandize bwanji. Zikomo.
Okay. Now, as we get to wrap up the interview, the Non-Governmental Gender Organizations Coordinating Council, NGOCC, has condemned what it describes as discriminatory remarks aired on Simon Mbewe Lane television, and that was on the 9th of January this year. Now, this was suggesting that a single woman is unfit to hold the office of mayor, and I think you touched on it lightly as well earlier on, and that leadership should be served, or rather reserved for a family man, quote unquote. What is your take on that?
My take on that is that there is no truth in that statement whatsoever, and we continue to condemn it. Leadership is not about whether you are, it's not about your marital status. Sometimes it's not even about whether you are 60 or you are 20 or 30. It's about what capacity you have. And that's what we should look at. We should look at the person's capacity. We should look at what that person is offering, and you measure the capacity in the person's articulation of what they're offering, in the person's, sometimes even in the person's experience, or even the reputation or the background of that person. It's not about your marital status. It's not about whether you have children. And I think we need to bring to an end campaigns that are not issue-based, but are just about attacking persons and personalities. We continue to condemn that, and if really you have something to offer, you should articulate what you have to offer, and not to think that you can get ahead by attacking people's personalities. That must come to an end. Attacking people's personalities actually shows that you yourself has nothing to offer. Because if you can't articulate what you have to offer and think you can only ride on attacking people's personalities, then you're empty yourself.
Okay. Before we finally do wrap up, can you just briefly touch on violence against women in elections?
Violence against women in elections is a huge deterrent to women's participation. And if over 50% of the population are women, we would like to see over 50% of this population, the women themselves, participate fairly in elections at every level, from local government right up to parliamentary and presidential. Hence, we strongly condemn violence against women, and we would call upon the Electoral Commission of Zambia to be alert to this and to ensure that they punish those that are perpetrators of violence against women by removing them from the political space and from participation. We call upon societies to be very conscious about violence against women and to report this. In fact, we have a toll-free line, 116. Any form of violence against women or political violence should be reported to this number. And we are also in communication with other agencies, such as the law enforcement agencies, to see how, when these matters are reported, they can be acted upon, so that it's not just a case of reporting. So please report any sign of violence against women in elections to 116. Even if you're being asked to provide sexual favors for you to be adopted, report to 116 and name the people. And if you are being attacked at a personal level, whether it's verbally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, please report it and let's address it. Thank you.
We do thank you for coming to Ms. Anamela.
Thank you. I am most obliged and very grateful that you allowed us to have this opportunity to speak on these very, very important issues. Thank you, Fortress and Shakaina.
Thank you. Thank you once more. We were joined in the studio by Ms. Mbewe Anamela, the Executive Director of the Non-Governmental Gender Organizations Coordinating Council, NGOCC. This has been Voice of the People. The Power Breakfast Show continues.
The views expressed on this program are not the views of Power FM.
People is a dynamic and interactive radio phoning show that gives listeners a platform to voice their opinions on current affairs, social issues,